this is an evolution, right? And I think I'll talk to people and they're like, oh, that didn't work. And it's like, yeah, things don't work all the time for me too. But it's like, how do we adapt and pivot quickly? And we learned from that. Everything's a learning and a growth opportunity.
Do you have a brilliant product idea, but don't know where to start to get it made? Or are you looking to level up your product, but afraid to take it overseas?
If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Erin, and we are
the Sourcing Gals,
your trusted guides to everything you need to know about sourcing, manufacturing, and scaling your product overseas. Whether you are just starting out or you've been making your own product for a while, we are here to help women source products overseas without the overwhelm.
In each episode, we'll share insider tips, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories to help you source more effectively, save time, and boost your profits. Duh! We know how hard it can be to juggle the ins and outs of product development, but don't worry, we've got your back.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into how you can grow your business,
make more money,
and turn your products into profit. Welcome to the
Sourcing Gals. Now let's get started. High five.
Hi. Welcome to this week's episode of
The Sourcing Gals.
Today's guest has done it all. CEO, consultant, and founder. She's here to share how she built not one, but two powerhouse businesses.
She's the founder of Motette, a top-rated bamboo children's pajama brand featured in Forbes, Fox News, and soon Good Housekeeping.
She's also the founder of Atlas Row, where she helps brands scale smarter by building high-performing offshore teams.
With nearly 15 years of experience leading brands through growth and transformation, she's truly an expert in efficiency and creative vision.
Please welcome Samantha Gold to the Sourcing Gals.
Yay! We're so happy to have you, Sam.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
So also, Sam is someone that both of us have worked with, and myself in a much more robust way. So I'm excited to share all the amazing things that I have learned from you and the great business that you're building. I mean, but really you have multiple businesses, and I love that because that's kind of like us too.
Right. You understand kind of all the angles. And I feel like whenever you talk or whenever we speak with you, I come away with like 10 other ideas that I've like scribbled down, and I'm like, that's really smart.
Yes. So I'm so excited to jump in on this. So let's see. I love Erin always has a good icebreaker. So you go ahead, ask this icebreaker. It's a good one.
I have so just to jump in, if you could outsource any everyday personal task in your life, what would it be?
So I would say my Amazon returns, but I really do outsource them to my husband.
Of course, as
a lot of people refer to my husband as my unpaid intern. All the
so good. That's so good.
I try to outsource mostly everything in my life.
Yeah. No. So we'll get to the outsourcing part. So before that, we're going to like reel it back to where a lot of this actually started, which was Motette, the building of your own product-based business brand, right? So I really am curious, like why you started Motette and kind of how that journey has led you also to launching yet another business, Atlas Row.
Absolutely. So I launched Motette when I was, after the birth of my two kids. So I have a 3.5-year-old named Blair and a 2-year-old son named Wes. And at the time, I was the CEO of a company called Elizabeth James The Label out of Charleston, South Carolina, which is a women's contemporary brand, primarily focused on wholesale. They're in about 350 boutiques across the U.S. And then I was brought in to double down on direct to consumer, and we saw amazing results throughout my time there. But I really feel like I've known since I was a little girl that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to build something of my own. And it was after the birth of my two children that I went all in on doing that. And it was because I saw this opportunity in the market for elevated pieces for little ones that combined both style and function. And so, I loved all of these occasion pieces for my daughter after she was born, but she'd wear them one time. And I struggled to find beautiful prints in these everyday styles, like these zipper rompers or, pajamas. It was all bold, cheesy prints that just really weren't a reflection of my own style. And so I thought, why not create this? Stars really aligned where I was able to put the proceeds from the sale of our home in Charleston towards the startup costs to launch my own business, Motette.
That's amazing. So obviously building Motette, you learn some things, right? You learn some things, some different ways of running this solopreneur business, right? It was just you until it wasn't. And I'm curious for you to take our listeners through how Motette evolved and how you started to leverage people outside of yourself to grow this business.
Absolutely. So to go back and share a little bit more insight about my background, I've actually spent most of my career in tech and consulting. And when I became the CEO of Elizabeth James The Label, that was my first experience working in retail. And a lot of
that's wild. Sorry to interrupt you. How do you get how do you go from, being a big name in tech and consulting and then jump into fashion?
Yeah. So essentially, I became friends with one of the co-founders of the brand. She was really the designer and the creative side. And I started sharing with her about my background in consulting. And she was like, we need your help. And so that was how I started working with them, as I started doing some consulting, really leveraging my expertise across driving efficiencies with people, process, technology. And then at the time, one of the other co-founders decided to leave and start her own brand, and they really needed someone to come in and run the business. And I said, I can do this. Hire me as your CEO. And a lot of people, and I think, even the team that was there were like, well, you don't have this experience. That's not the way that we do things. Or when I would push back and question the way that things were done, and they'd say, well, this is just how we do it. And I'm like, but why? And so actually, I think it was actually a benefit that I came from this outside perspective, because I really did challenge the status quo. And I think that's important, because that's the way that I've approached building Motette as well, is thinking about it from an outside industry perspective, thinking about it in a way that's innovative, that's unique, that, people aren't doing today, as opposed to, I've worked, from the ground up in retail my entire career. And so this is what I was taught. So this is what I do. I don't approach things that way. And so I think it's having that outside perspective that has really served me well, both in helping my clients, but also with launching Motette. And what I realized very quickly with launching Motette is, I was wearing all of the hats, and that obviously wasn't sustainable. But if I wanted to grow and to be profitable, I needed to bring in outside help. But in doing so, I decided to leverage offshore support that's a lot more cost effective than hiring locally. And truly what I realized is that, having run Elizabeth James The Label and now Motette, and this might not gel well with all listeners, but 80% of that company could have been run by offshore support at a fraction of the cost, truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Motette building this apparel product-based business. What was the first, and let's actually talk about what offshore help also means. For some of our listeners, they might truly not have heard that phrase before. So I'd love for you to explain, what does that look like? What did that look like in Motette, and how did you start that? Who was your first hire offshore with Motette, and how did that grow?
Yeah. So in my case, all of the women that support Motette and support my clients at Atlas Row are based in the Philippines. I work primarily with female entrepreneurs, and most of the offshore support are women as well. Many of them are moms that are looking for flexibility in their day-to-day lives as well. In terms of my first hire for Motette, I hired someone to help me with social media outreach. And so something that was unique about the way that I built Motette was I actually did it in public about 6 months prior to launching. It was my business coach at the time, Carlin Bushman, who said, well, just start sharing what you're doing in public. I wanted everything buttoned up and perfect. And she challenged me on that. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to start sharing. I'm going to share behind the scenes. Everything from the renaming of my company to my, brand colors, my brand logo. I just started sharing and asking my audience what they liked. And then I realized very quickly that I was onto something and that people were loving helping me co-create this brand. And I started to form these connections and relationships with moms all over the US, which is my target market. But I also realized that I was spending hours and hours a day on social media in my DMs, and I didn't want to do that. And so I said, okay, I'm going to bring in someone offshore to help me with that. And I also realized very quickly that it could be an opportunity to drive sales as well. And so now what that looks like, fast forward to today, and I'm helping other brands, replicate the success of building their own communities for their brands, is it looks like sending 100 DMs per day to potential customers. And so I'll look at other brands that have a similar target market to Motette, and I'll confirm that they're a mom, that have little ones, from newborn to 6-year-olds. And I will send them, or my offshore person, more like, will send them an outreach that says, hey, we'd love for you to be a part of our community. What that looks like is a few polls a week. And in exchange, you'll get access to some perks along the way. And I would say the majority of the women that we reach out to want to be a part of that. And so, I've been able to grow my followers and also my sales through, this method. And 80% of my sales today come from my inner circle. And so that was really the first role. And again, I just look at, like, in terms of, if someone's thinking about offshore and they're like, I don't even know where to start, right? What I would recommend for them is, where are they spending most of their time, where it's a repeatable process, where we could potentially bring someone in to take that off their plate, where they're really in the weeds and not focused on strategy. And that would really give them time back.
And
Absolutely.
I have to jump in here because I booked a power hour with Sam a couple months ago and walked out. I remember walking over to Bailey and going, get ready for our world to get rocked. And literally in the best way. And truly, I can echo all of this and say, holy cow, what you just talked about with this outreach and building community and followers. And I'm doing it now in my own product-based business. And it is a game changer. I mean, and it's authentic, right? Like, it's not just, I'm trying to go find a follower. I'm trying to find women, specifically in my market too, that could use my product, that actually might have a need for a product that I serve. And then, to your point, leveraging them in this, it's like the best focus group I've ever had. I mean, I just posted about my seasonal colors and how much, having them rank my colors. And let me tell you, I had 150 women vote on it. And guess what? It wasn't what I was going to do. And I'm like, holy cow, I am so glad I asked for their feedback.
And it's fun. So I'm in your inner circle. I don't know if you know that.
I love that.
So I'm in your inner circle and I love voting. Like, when you come up with a new one, I'm like, ooh, what are we looking at today?
Yeah. I mean, you're truly building like this sense of community, right? So it's like, it's not this like icky buying of followers, and not at all. It's truly building this community. And also, as a founder and who's starting this business, it's just such great real-time feedback. I mean, within 15 minutes, the answer to my poll is about the same as it is 24 hours later from the story post, but it's like instant access. So I cannot thank you enough for that you just share with our listeners. And for me, someone who's in the process of doing this, it has been so exciting. And the fact that these offshore employees, like, they are dynamic. I mean, I will tell you, just transparently, for our business, between just this podcast alone, you helped us recruit an amazing podcast editor. And the job that he does, the speed at which he's doing it, the efficiency at which he's doing it, the quality of which he's doing it, like, it has been a huge lift, specifically off of Aaron's plate, because that was something that you were having to do.
It was super time consuming, and it was not enabling us to get to the next step in our business goals.
Yeah.
So it was great. Shout out to Jib.
Yeah, Jib. Hey, Jib. Thanks for the edits.
But yeah, so obviously, Samantha, you mentioned that offshore support to help reach out and, garner interest in that inner circle was how you expanded that portion of your business.
Yeah, 100%. And, I continue to do that to this day. And as Jackie mentioned, right, that's how I drive all of my new product development. And so all the time I'm releasing new prints at Motette, I'm coming up with, new styles, and that's all driven by feedback within the community. So not only does it help with engagement and sales, but it also helps reduce risk in terms of what I'm investing in for inventory, right? And so to Jackie's point, the way that, her audience stack ranked those colors was different than how she would have. And so she maybe would have, invested more from an inventory perspective in a green color versus a red color, but that's actually not what the audience wanted. And so it really helps when making decisions from that perspective as well. And I also had a potential investor tell me, oh, this is a really unique product development strategy, and something that he was really interested in. And so there's just other things that have come out of it that, and it really just happened so organically that I couldn't have anticipated, but have just been game changers for my own business. And now, as you mentioned, I'm helping roll out and replicate the success with clients that I'm working with for Atlas Row.
Yeah, I'd love okay, because again, we have product-based founders and listeners or people that are thinking about it, right? And a lot of them are solopreneurs, right? They are figuring this out themselves. So I just love that Atlas Row is bringing so much capabilities to someone who is a solopreneur. Can you go through a couple examples? Like, what are ways in which a product-based entrepreneur can leverage offshore help? Like, what aspects of the business are you seeing most success in? Your clients. I mean, I could speak for myself too. I have now, I think, 5 offshore employees, which is amazing. When I tell people that, their eyes bug out and I'm like, it's the best thing ever. And so I'd love for you to explain, like, what are those different channels of work that you're really seeing like major unlocks for people that are running this all themselves right now currently?
Yeah. So I would say across community engagement, as we've just gone through, across sales, also like wholesale opportunities. If you haven't thought about it for that, it can unlock so many doors. I mean, within 2 months of opening up wholesale for Motette, leveraging offshore support, I was in 35 retailers. And again,
wow.
People are like, how are you getting those results? And so at Atlas Row, like truly what I do that's different than a VA agency is I come in and I help the founder build out the strategy, right? And so what that actually looks like, it's building out those templates on, okay, we want to approach potential retailers or stockists for the brand. I'm actually going to put together the outreach templates and what that actually looks like a 3 to 5 email sequence. We're going to identify, again, maybe another brand that you sit well with or a competitor. We can go to their website and look at their stockists. Like, if you haven't done this and you're thinking about getting into wholesale, like go to a competitor, and oftentimes they will literally list their retailers on their site. And that's an amazing list to start with. And so I'll give that list to the offshore support. I'll say, okay, leverage something like a Zoom Info or Signal Hire to capture contact information for these boutiques. And then obviously everything is tracked with, systems and processes in place. So they're tracking their outreach and sharing that with the founder. But that is how, I'm leveraging it internally and how I'm helping other founders as well from a wholesale perspective. Another area where people spend a lot of money working with agencies is PR. And so if you haven't thought about, and again, these are the ways that I think people don't even think about, oh, I could leverage offshore support for that. As you guys mentioned in the intro, right? Like, I've been featured in Forbes. I just had an article come out in Business Insider at Fox News. I'm going to be on the cover of Sheridan Road Magazine, which is a magazine in the North Shore that goes to 220 homes for the month of November. All of that came from offshore outreach. So again, I work with the founder on their PR strategy. I work with them on their pitches. I work with them on the potential outlets that we want to go after. And then we bring in the offshore support to execute that strategy and keep track of all of the follow-up. And so again, like, that's a repeatable process that we can bring someone in. Other areas right off the bat is Shopify. So all of your inventory management, all of your, for instance, I'm dropping new products every season. I have an offshore person that's uploading all of that into Shopify, that's making changes to my website. I have someone that helps me with email marketing. I have someone that helps with meta ads. So really, like, you name it. I mean, I am the only full-time employee at Motette. I have my 3PL in Denver, Colorado, but outside of that, I'm leveraging offshore support for every aspect of my business.
It's really been like a mind-blowing last few months since we started, not only since I met Sam, but also since we started kind of implementing some of this stuff ourselves. And then also, this is kind of off topic, but we both recently read the book, Buy Back Your Time. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it is really talking about how your zone of genius as a business owner is where you should be spending most of your time. And those things that aren't in your zone of genius should be given to someone for which it's their zone of genius. So
100%.
you talking about, an offshore employee who's working on PR is their zone of genius, reaching out, sending emails, just being like, I think of PR people as they have to be like insufferable to a certain point in time. Like they just are shooting stuff out and they're reaching out and they just keep going. That's not something that I enjoy doing whatsoever. That is something that somebody else enjoys doing.
Right. 100%. And so I think, Erin, I know you sent me a list of potential questions, prior to this interview about what should someone, leverage offshore support for first. And I would say along those lines, it's different for everyone. And I would, I would ask the founder, what brings you joy, right? Like, what's your zone of genius? Where do you actually enjoy spending your time? And then, offload the other stuff to someone else. And I think, again, like as founders, we should be focused on the strategy and we should have other people that are executing and in the weeds. And so again, that's where I leverage offshore support, is to be in the weeds so that I can focus on strategy. And that's what I love to do with my clients. And that's, again, why I'm different than another VA agency that's just going to say, you need someone for social media, here you go. And it's like, no, we actually, want to focus on the strategy. I want to challenge you to think differently about ways that you're approaching sales and marketing or, customer acquisition. And then I'm actually going to help build out those onboarding processes. The other thing that I think founders struggle with, especially if, maybe this is their first time leading a team, is the actual leadership and management piece and what goes into that, and making sure that you actually have like standardized operating procedures in place. Whether or not you're hiring someone locally or offshore, you need to make sure that that hire is set up for success, right? And so I really kind of like ride shotgun with founders to take them through that process and build all of that out to make sure that they are successful. And then I've actually transitioned my model where, as long as the offshore support is employed by you, you continue to get access from me for, biweekly and monthly check-ins so that we can really talk through how is it going? Are there other areas that we haven't thought about? Are there ways that you can think differently again about sales or marketing to really continue to evolve your processes? Like, this is an evolution, right? And I think I'll talk to people and they're like, oh, that didn't work. And it's like, yeah, things don't work all the time for me too. But it's like, how do we adapt and pivot quickly? And we learn from that. Everything's a learning and a growth opportunity.
What do you think, though, is the main mistake folks make when they do, people that haven't used your help or trying to go at it by themselves, like when they're engaging offshore support, what's like that main mistake you see being made?
I think it's, again, it goes back to the processes and like having the foundation in place is the main mistake that people make. If they don't have that in place, like from a training perspective, if they haven't documented it, it's really hard for that person to be successful. And so you need to make sure, again, you have ways that you're communicating. What does that look like? What are the channels? How often do you have weekly check-ins, right? These people need to be like set up for success. Like, they're not wizards that are just come in, right? As much as we'd all love that, they need that. But I think, again, with my support, that's kind of the hand holding that I do to take that lift off of the founder to make sure that everyone is set up for success. So I'm not only like training that offshore support, I'm almost training the founders along with them.
But I think that's so great, not just for offshore support, but like you mentioned, even if you have a local employee, you have to be able to concisely tell that person what their job is and how to do it. And if you can't, then like, they're not going to do it properly.
Yeah. And honestly, some of the best advice that I got when I started Motette was wear all of the hats first and figure out what it takes before you bring in someone to do that job for you. And again, like it was definitely challenging. There were times when I was like, I don't want to learn Klaviyo. I don't want to learn Shopify, right? And there's so many tools and so much technology, but I'm so glad that I did, because it means that I can also like jump in when I need to. And it does mean that I can train someone else on it. One tip, regardless of like, how you're leveraging talent, if you're not doing this, is like Loom. I use Loom for everything in terms of training, but Loom, you can actually copy and paste your transcripts. And so if you do a Loom video that talks someone through a process, copy and paste that transcript into ChatGPT and say, create a standardized operating procedure, create an SOP based on this Loom transcript, and it will literally document the whole process for you.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
The one thing I feel like when I talk to people about offshore help that I always get is, but how are you trusting somebody that you don't know with your business? How you're letting them get in, see the inner workings, you're letting them reach out. So I feel like you have some guardrails that you've set up. I'll let you talk about in regards to maybe when you're first onboarding a new offshore team member, and then versus like when you do actually relinquish a little bit more of that trust and you kind of have to let some things go. So I'm just curious, how would you rebut that to a customer or potential client that's just like, I don't know, that seems like, it's scary to hand someone over the keys to my business?
That's a great question, Jackie.
I really like it. I might ask them, okay, what security measures do you have in place today for, local talent? I would say, the biggest thing is like having password protectors, like a 1Password or a LastPass, where you're not actually giving them the actual passwords, but you're giving them a technology that allows them to access your logins without actually giving them that information. But again, I think like you're going to bring, whether it's someone offshore or someone local, there is a level of trust that goes into that. And there's just like certain things that you have to let go of. For me, that's like wanting to be perfect, every post to be perfect, every caption to be perfect. It's just like not sustainable. You're not going to grow that way. And so you have to let go. I mean, Carlin loves, progress over perfection. Like that's like truly what it is. And so, like you have to let go of certain things if they're just not that important in order to move the needle in your business. Like you're not going to be able to scale effectively and grow if you are, if you're the one doing every single social media post or every single graphic, right? Like you can't focus on business strategy or exploring new partnerships or opportunities if you're always in the weeds. And so you have to be willing and able to let go of some of it. But again, I think I would challenge the business owner to say, okay, what security do you have in place with your business today? And I think, again, it's no different to hiring someone local who works remote, right? There's VPNs, two-factor authentication. All of that can be implemented with offshore support in the same way that you'd have someone locally.
And I think you also have a really great framework that you used when you are starting up with someone new. I mean, you told me, it actually goes back to the book. It's like you cast the vision, you give the direction. So it's like 10% there, then you let the 80% execution be done by somebody else, and then you audit it. I know you told me before with some of these new offshore, resources that we're getting, like have them draft the email, let them sit in your inbox, and you do that final audit before you hit send, right? Like even something as simple as that until they get a feel, until they get a vibe. And, I'm leveraging someone to help us with our email marketing as well. And to be honest, like I'm always going to go in and do my own audit at the end of the day. But man, where she's able to get it to before I step in, maybe I'm tweaking some words here or there. Maybe, hey, we changed a promotion. We're going to flip this around. But the guts, the majority, 95% of it being completed without me having to be involved is a huge time save. And then that last 5%, I come in, I check it, I push it out, right? And then now there's some relationships that we've built specifically within my social media outreach. Like I don't need to check in on her. She's doing great. We've built that trust factor. She's replying to people on my behalf. She gets our brand voice, right? So some of those things take time as well.
And I think like Sam said, those trainings and those measures of trust and that, path is going to be the same, whether it's someone local or someone remote or someone on the other side of this world. And if you are a product-based business who is working with manufacturing on the other side of the world, you also have that same trust factor. You pay someone thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in a PO, and then you get product shipped to you. Like you have to kind of let go of that idea of total and utter control over everything. Of course, with guardrails, of course, with contracts, of course, with check-ins.
Yeah. And I think, Jackie, to your point, everything you just described too is like that feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, when you have anyone join your business, there's a lot more feedback up front and you're investing time into that person. And then as you start to build trust and gain credibility and they truly understand your brand voice and they're an extension of you, you can let go of some of that, right?
Yeah.
But I think, again, to your point, like with those PR emails, if they're drafting them and they are personalizing the first couple sentences based on, a recent article that journalist wrote, like you said, I'd have them sit in the drafts versus hitting send for the first few weeks. So you can just keep an eye and double check that work. And then it's like, okay, let's move to phase 2 of this training, in the onboarding process where, I really trust you. You understand this. Everything looks great. Now you can just hit send. I don't need to, go over those. But I think, again, it goes back to the founder needs to invest their time too in this process. When you're hiring anyone, right, there is a level of a time investment that goes into the training and the onboarding, and someone has to be prepared for that.
Yeah. I think that even if you aren't a product founder yet, if you're still very new to this journey, even working in a corporate environment, we've all worked in corporate environments where we've had teams of people, and the same thing. If I have a junior product developer on my team, I'm going to be reading their emails before they go to the factory for their first month, maybe, and then tweaking their language, making sure that they're talking to someone who speaks English as a second language the best way. And so it's not unlike, like to your point, Sam, it's on the founder, it's on the CEO, it's on the business owner to invest in bringing up the person who's going to be doing this work.
A lot of people come from the corporate world and they think, oh, I don't have any experience in, product-based businesses. But it's like, you do. All of these skills are transferable.
They are.
And remember that, and have confidence that, oh, actually, I led teams and I've had people report to me. That same thing goes for when you're starting your own business and you're bringing in, whether it's offshore support or someone local.
And I think one other myth bust, just to throw out there, it might be kind of coming in from left field, but the other question I get asked a lot when I tell people about my offshore resources is the time change. And I was like, well, actually, every single person I work with is working on Eastern time zone. So it's actually really, really, again, whether they're down the street from me or across the globe, it literally is no difference to me. Now, not everybody needs to work that way, but I will tell you, for majority of the work that we are having done, it's very nice to be able to actually WhatsApp back and forth real time throughout the day, which we do. So also just thinking about, again, if you're thinking of all these reasons why it might not work for you, like just to break those barriers down. Like there are people that are very much, actually my personal VA said, she's like, I prefer to be working on Eastern time zone with you. The traffic where I live is crazy and no one's bothering me in the middle of the night. And like, that's her preferred time to work, right? That is when she is in her zone of genius and getting to do what she does best. So I just think, again, all of these reasons and things you might be telling yourself as to why not, like, I want to break it down that, like, get rid of those because it will unlock next level of your business.
It totally will.
It's been a game changer.
So Sam, back to kind of quickly to touch on what you do. You talked about this a little bit throughout the episode, but you specifically right now, I just want to kind of like break it down to brass tacks for folks who are listening. With Atlas Row, you are helping founders facilitate finding and utilizing offshore help in the best possible way for their business to grow. Is that it? Or do you have like a little elevator pitch that's more accurate?
Absolutely. And so, like for me, the way that the process works is I start with an hour strategy call with every single founder. And again, I'm working with them and figuring out, again, what sets them apart from their competitors. What are their goals? What are some of the challenges that they're experiencing in their business? And then I help them formulate a strategy. From there, I actually bring in offshore support to execute that strategy. I set them up in a client portal, right? Where I'm sharing all of these onboarding resources, whether it's like outreach templates, all of those resources that are associated with the role that we've hired for. And then I bring in the offshore support to actually onboard with the founder. And then from there, we'll kick off the work together. We have a Slack channel where communication is on an ongoing basis. And then we have bi-weekly check-ins. And so again, for product-based business owners, that can be for, social media management, community outreach, sales, PR. It could be for some of those more technical roles like Shopify or Klaviyo, but it's really end-to-end across the business. But again, the main differentiator between me and another VA agency is that I'm truly a strategy partner, like riding shotgun with that business owner and then bringing in the offshore support to execute and get in the weeds and actually perform that strategy.
Can you also talk about, just because we like to be transparent on the show, like financially, what does this look like for a product-based founder to come and engage in a relationship with you and hire offshore?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a one-time onboarding strategy fee. It's $2,500. And then it's $25 per hour for the offshore support. But again, that covers payment for the offshore support and then continued access to me for those monthly and bi-weekly, check-ins from a strategy perspective to really ride shotgun with that founder.
Awesome. So I'm telling you, it is worth the investment, the ROI that we are leveraging ourselves here through having offshore help. It really just is. It's a game changer for leveling up your business.
We're going to end with a couple quick rapid fire fun
Ooh,
questions.
This is fun. I like this. Okay.
Rapid fire fun first one is, what's your favorite children's product other than your own?
I feel like I have to go with one of my clients' products, and that would be Stereotype Kids, who just launched a new book and also have a line that's gender neutral and really fun if you haven't checked them out.
Ooh, I'm going to check them out.
Cool. Okay. What's one thing you'd never outsource?
One thing I would never outsource. Can this be like personally, or does it have to be professional?
Totally.
Sure.
No. It could be personally.
Sure. I would say meal prepping. I love to cook, and it's something that I really enjoy. And so I'm always in the kitchen.
Wow. That's so funny, because at the top of this episode, we were talking about things we would outsource. I was going to say my kids' lunches.
Yes. That's
I love
cooking dinners, but the kids' lunches for some reason are the end of me.
I love it.
And then lastly, what would be your dream collaboration?
Oh, my dream collaboration. Okay, so I'm actually kind of, I don't know if I can share this, but I'm actually talking to her agent at the moment. But have you guys heard of Cam Wimberly? So side note, I am a huge Bravo fan. I love all the Real Housewives, any of the Bravo shows. And so she was one of the original cast members on Southern Charm. And a lot of my brand goes back to where I first founded it in Charleston, South Carolina. And so she is an influencer there, but she's also just a mom and a wonderful woman. She's been doing some really cool collabs like with Tucker Nuck and other children's companies. And she has a little girl. And so I am currently exploring that.
Ooh, that's amazing. So I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Yeah, so it's like manifestation coming to life here already, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'm an open book.
I love it. I love it, Sam.
All right, we're going to wrap up. Where can listeners connect with you?
Ooh, listeners can connect with me at Shop Motette on Instagram, and Motette is Mottette. Also at the Atlas Row. Feel free to shoot me a DM, either of those places. Also send me an email, call with me. You can actually go to at the Atlas Row and book an intro call with me. And so if this is something that you're interested in for your business, I'd love to connect with you.
That's amazing. We are so honored to have you here with us today. We have just loved getting to know you as a business owner and as a person over the last few weeks, and are really excited to share you and your journey with our listeners.
Yes. So thank you, Sam, for all the wisdom you have imparted on all of us today, on all of Erin and myself for the past couple months. We're so excited to watch your businesses continue to grow and flourish. And we're excited to continue to outsource the things that we just don't really want to do anymore. And let
Those
someone
lunches.
those lunches. Eventually, we'll get to the lunches. But for now, we'll do it. We'll do with things that, again, at least for sourcing gals and our product-based businesses that we need help with leveraging. So thanks again, Sam. We'll hopefully have you back on the podcast here soon. And so this is us signing off today on The Sourcing Gals.